I'm sorry.
Thank you all for your patience. Our apologies for being a few minutes late. We were in executive session for good reason. And we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Rice, would you call the roll, please?
Wendy Thomas,
Here.
Michael Thorwart,
Here.
Jerry Grubb,
Present.
Kathleen Mulholland,
Here.
Andy Bach,
Here.
Denise Brooks,
Here.
Mark Violet,
Mark is away on personal time.
Kyle McKessie,
Here.
Edward T.
Here. Thank you. Welcome, everyone, ladies and gentlemen, and students, to this meeting of the Council Rock School District Board of School Directors. We'll begin with the Superintendent's Report. If you would, please, Dr. Fraser.
Thank you, Mr. Tate. Good evening, members of the board and members of the community. Our first days of school, of course, are rapidly approaching this time of year. The first day of school is set for Tuesday, September 5th for students in grades K to 6, grade 7, and grade 9. And then all students will report to school on Wednesday, September 6th. Prior to that, we'll be welcoming back our new teachers this coming week, and then all faculty and staff back for 3 days the following week. So these certainly are exciting times in the school district. From a home access center standpoint, we're doing something different this year in that we are staggering the release of our August information. I know the principals have been sending out these dates, but let me give them to you in one fell swoop. Tomorrow, Friday, August 18th, we will release student demographic and bus information. And then on Monday, August 21st, elementary school class placements will be made available on HACC. The following day, Tuesday, August 22nd, middle school teams will be made available. And then next Wednesday, August 23rd, middle and high school student schedules will become available on HACC. So we are looking forward to meeting with success with our HACC release this August. A couple months ago, I provided a PLC training update that had occurred earlier in the summer. And at that time, I had mentioned that this training would be continuing later into the summer. Here are some highlights from this extended PLC team training. This summer, approximately 150 teachers and administrators attended 2 days of training on professional learning communities. At the training, the participants learned how collaborative teams operate in order to answer 4 critical questions. The first question is, what is most essential for teachers to learn, for students to learn? The second question is, how will we know when they've learned it? The third question is, how will we respond when they have not learned? And then the fourth and final question is, how will we respond when the students have learned it? Teams developed their norms, began mapping the priority standards across the school year, and developed common formative assessments for use within the first quarter of the school year. In addition to the student collaborative, the current collaborative teams at Churchville Elementary and South, we will add 30 more teams across the school district. Every building will have at least one PLC team. Teams represent all grade levels and various content areas, from kindergarten to middle school math to high school English and art. All teams will meet regularly to engage in a collaborative cycle and answer those 4 critical questions. Along with the guiding coalition or leadership team at each building, the PLC teams will have an opportunity to share their experiences with colleagues as we look forward to full implementation in 2018-19 with every teacher on at least one PLC team. And finally, I will point out that our next school board meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, September 19th. It is a Tuesday. We're breaking away from our typical Thursday schedule. It will be Tuesday, September 19th. That Thursday is a Jewish holiday and schools are closed on that day. So the next school board meeting will indeed be Tuesday, September 19th. Thanks, Mr. Tate. That ends my report.
Thank you, Dr. Fraser. Next on the agenda is public comment. There's no one signed up for public comment, but you're welcome to take the podium if you wish. Public comment is an opportunity for members of the public to address the board. We would ask that you limit your comments to no longer than 3 minutes. Please consider the fact that there may be young children in the audience or watching this broadcast live on CRTV when you're speaking. It's our goal to maintain a respectful environment so that members of the community have an equal opportunity to address the board without interruption. While the board welcomes your ideas and will consider them in deliberating an issue, we may not necessarily respond this evening to your comments or questions. Could you give us your municipality residence, please?
Sure, Betsy Worthen from Holland.
Thank you.
Since the last meeting, there's been time to reflect on the fiasco of the Capital Planning Committee and its fiscally irresponsible result. We were led to believe that the board was honestly evaluating data and listening to the community, with the outcome to be a decision to save the district money. What we saw was a process that was not honest and appears to have been predetermined. At every turn, Rolling Hills seems to have been in the bullseye. We have watched you twist yourselves into a pretzel to justify that conclusion to close Rolling Hills. When word got out that it was more important to spend millions to repurpose Rolling Hills for the facilities department than for students, suddenly there was a realization that it was unnecessary to move the facilities department. When a board member expressed concerns about the future impact on Hillcrest from redistricting that would occur if Rolling Hills was closed, within a week there was a new scenario to build an addition onto Hillcrest to gain that board member's vote. When questions arose about the demographic data and whether all the new infrastructure would really be needed in several years, you just plowed right through and ignored those concerns, because to examine those concerns might mean there was no current justification to close Rolling Hills. We watched your so-called priorities shift like deck chairs on the Titanic. Affecting the least number of students seemed to be important until it wasn't. Prioritizing students' proximity to their school obviously went out the window. And finally, as decisions are being made, the north-south balance became the top priority. Priorities came and went, depending on which priority fit the plan to close Rolling Hills. Your lack of creativity to avoid spending millions has been astounding. What happened to the concept of recapturing classrooms in our elementary schools? Why not consider a strategy that could cost $1 million, according to your slides, instead of needlessly spending $25 million? Because then it might not be necessary to close Rolling Hills. When discussion turned to the problem with middle school enrollments if Rolling Hills was not closed, did you take the time to determine if there was a strategy to resolve that temporary problem? No, because it would disrupt the focus, laser focus on Rolling Hills. So I continue to wonder why. Why is it so important to close Rolling Hills that you are willing to spend $25 million for that purpose? Why close 19 classrooms only to turn around and build 15 new classrooms without even knowing what the redistricting will look like or if you can achieve the north-south balance? Why would you not take time to put on the brakes to assure that you are not wasting $25 million in taxpayer dollars? Why choose a plan that clearly does not save money? Sadly, it feels personal. I don't know what it is about the Rolling Hills community that has made it so important to dissolve it. With the lack of transparency in this process, I imagine that we will never know. But we know what we see, and your machinations have not gone unnoticed. Due diligence and sound fiscal, educational, and strategic plans are all missing from your decision process. With the cost of $25 million to yield savings of just $473,000 a year, 1/2 century from now, when this multi-million-dollar expenditure might finally be recovered, I am sure even then they will be looking back and still asking why. Anybody who wants one?
Nancy Carroll, Newtown Borough. I found myself at the last meeting waving papers that nobody had any idea what was on them. So I thought I would replicate them and talk about them tonight. If the board did not know or missed what is on these papers, I don't blame you, because you were given a lot of information on May 22nd, and this was in a 27-page PowerPoint. What it says is that if the schools we have today, we have 218 classrooms in our capacity. We could get we could get up to 234 classrooms without spending any more than $900,000. Column 1, column 2, you get those classrooms. All 10 schools remain open. Total classrooms needed in 1819 when the middle schools open are 218, the capacity that we have today. The total classrooms projected to need it in 21-22 is 213, less than we have today. Why we are taking 17 classrooms or 18 or 19 away and then adding on 15 and spending $25 million, I have absolutely no idea. And we're adding classrooms into an area that has no students. So if you turn it over to the other page, to the other side, it's 10-room addition, and this was for Rolling Hills, but now we've decided it's Hillcrest, 5-room addition to Wrightstown. So in this one, it divides the number of classrooms into north and south. So you take away the 18 at Rolling Hills, and instead of 218, you have 200 classrooms. You can still add up to 122 classrooms for less than $900,000. The total classrooms projected to be needed are 119 in 1819, 108 plus 111, and whereas the enrollment keeps going down, you only need 112 less than we have today. Why are we spending all this money? I don't mind any school getting the renovations it needs. If you want to keep Wrightstown in the inventory, you can sister it with Newtown, which is one of our lowest cost per student schools, Wrightstown being one of the highest, and even that out, and they can become a full school, just the same way Chancellor and Goodnote were a full school. Please look at these numbers. You have information now that I think some of you may have not processed before, and give it some thought. Thank you very much, Nancy Carroll.
Thank you, Mrs. Carroll. Anyone else wish to speak? Thank you. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Mr. Block, would you read the motion for the consent agenda, please?
I move to approve the consent agenda, items A through S as contained in the attachment to this agenda, subject to audit.
Do you have comments or questions?
Would someone second it?
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. That's helpful. Do we have comments or questions?
Just, we have a new format for the public, so making sure we coordinate this. Yeah, I just have a little bit of commentary. And I guess, Chuck, it's going to be around the special education items. We have, by example, we talked about variability in our budget. We talked about that Mr. Reinhardt does a wonderful job with our budget. I want to point out there are some items on this that even one example of this costs the district tremendously. We have one student, special education, and the services required to support that student cost the district $180,000 a year. We have a second student, and to properly educate that child, we spend as a district $337,000 a year. And so together, those two students are roughly $520,000. So my question, Dr. Lambert, is some of that is a residential program. Do we get access funding back? Much of that, some portion of that, as you discussed with us last time, in the one contract, the larger of the two includes the ESY is already built in. We don't get much reimbursement from the state for that. What kind of reimbursement, or maybe a $520,000 expenditure by this district will we receive from the state? Ballpark. I didn't give you the decision yet, so I apologize.
That's okay. The program that you're discussing is located in New Jersey, so it doesn't fall under the typical process that we go through with PDE, where we automatically get a reimbursement of 60% of the cost. We are able to submit an application to get that reimbursement, which we do, and we have always gotten 60% reimbursement off that cost, which covers the school year services. It does not give us any reimbursement off of ESY programming.
So roughly, we're putting out 520 some the 280 because of the summer. Roughly $280,000.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure where you're getting the 525 figure.
I have the 180 and the 337. I have 180 for the, whose contract is that? That 180 is Foundation's contract.
So that's a separate program from the New Jersey
Correct,
program.
correct. So that will have a 60%.
Correct.
Okay. So my point was, I don't want to belabor it, but my point was to the community, we talked about, variability in our budget. Between our staff and our administrators, they do a really marvelous job. And I just wanted to point out that, we bring the budget in remarkably close. One single item on this budget, which is required by federal law for us to comply with, can run up a bill of $300,000. Just wanted to point it out to the community. And also to reaffirm my comment to the community that if we can put pressure on our state legislators to get any reimbursement on our ESY, which is also obligation under federal law, that would be a really appropriate use of funds from the federal.
And ESY is extended
school year. There are students for whom, there are students within our community for whom the absence of 3-month hiatus in the summer will provide them a slide back that they will just not be able to recover to the same level they left the school year. We all know that, September starts and kids have a little bit of relearning and catching up to do. Many of our special needs students, that will, it'll break their patterns and it'll really set them back much more than just a week, 2 weeks, or 3 weeks. But we don't receive Medicaid access funds or reimbursement from the federal government for those programs.
Thank you for pointing that out. Other comments, questions on the consent agenda items? Any objections?
I'm going to be abstaining from the senior class trips. I just don't agree that it's in our ballpark. We're voting no on the senior class trips.
Very good. Anything else? We'll have a roll call vote. Ms. Rice, please.
Denise Brooks,
Yes.
Kyle McKessie,
Yes.
Edward Tate,
Yes.
Wendy Thomas,
Yes.
Michael Thorwald,
Yes.
Jerry Grubb,
Yes, with the exception of item O, senior class trips. I'll be voting no on that.
Kathleen Mohammed,
Yes.
Andrew Locke,
Yes.
Thank you. Do we have items for discussion? No. We'll move on to items for board approval since there are no items for discussion. First two items are board policy items. Mr. Grubb, could you read those two motions together, please? I think we can combine them.
I don't know, we were discussing these. There were a number of policies that have already gone through this evening that were all unanimous consent to come forward. These two policies were carved out because they weren't necessarily garnering the same universal consent. And so I asked, is it okay with everyone that we combine them, or was there somebody who wanted?
We'll have them as separate motions then. Would you read item A, please?
Sure. I move to approve policy 105.3, animals used within the education program as contained in the agenda this evening.
Second.
Thank you. Comments, questions?
I just want to be clear, and first of all, I appreciate Dr. Elliott's work on this. The phrasing on that became a little odd. The new system is having the best of me. The bottom line said exclusion. This does not include service animals. And this becomes a little absurd, what is it referring to, this? And so as the exclusion, so I would prefer if we could change exclusion as this does not include service animals to be more along the lines of this policy does not apply to service animals. Would that be acceptable?
Absolutely.
Anybody have a disagreement with that? Very good. I appreciate you making that change.
Okay, as amended, are there any objections? Hearing none, Ms. Rice, would you record this motion as passing unanimously. We have a second policy item. Dr. Thorwald, would you read the motion, please, for item B?
Sure. I move to retire policy 213, assessment of student progress as listed in the agenda.
Second.
Thank you. Comments, questions? Objections? Hearing none. Ms. Rice, would you record this motion as passing unanimously? The next item for board approval, C, AccuTrace Service Agreement. Ms. McKessie, would you read the motion, please?
I am not certain I see it.
It's a little difficult to find. There's a preceding sentence under recommended action at the bottom.
The Human Resources Department requests the attached AccuTrace Service Agreement for Employment Screening Services and AccuTrace Service Agreement Act 168 Platform Addendum are approved. I move to approve the agreements between AccuTrace Incorporated and the Council Rock School District.
Thank you very much. Second.
Second.
Ms. Thomas, thank you. Comments, questions?
Can you give us just a 1 minute? You don't have to go crazy, but let people know what this is for.
Sure. It's a program, an internet-based program that will allow us to very quickly complete the sexual misconduct disclosure forms that recently became required by law. So very briefly, when we hire new employees, they complete one sexual misconduct form for every previous employer where they worked with children, and regardless of if children were present or not, their most recent employer. So we tend to see anywhere from 2 to 10 forms per person. The way the law is written, the forms have to be sent out by the Human Resources Department, can't be sent out by the candidate, and every individual entity and school district has to do their own form. So a candidate couldn't have it completed like a criminal record check and then take that with them to each place. It has to be done by each district, regardless of if it's been done in the past. So there's this program that's offered by a company called AccuTrace that's very, very reasonable. It's $3 per person. And the employee, instead of doing 10 paper forms, logs on, puts the information for their previous employer right on the portal. The form then generates an online sexual misconduct disclosure form that the previous employer completes. And then we're able to keep track of where the verifications are through our access in the portal. We can send reminders. It's very nice. I've done it on the side of completing it for employees. It's used in Centennial and Central Bucks. It's a great product. I was surprised when I looked into it how reasonable it was. And it's about working smarter. This is a great thing that'll help us just work smarter, faster. Thank you.
It just comes in a little sidebar so people know what we're talking about. That's
$600.
$600, yeah.
Very good. Thank you. Thanks for asking, Dr. Thorwald. Any more questions or comments? Objections? Hearing none. Ms. Rice, would you record this motion as passing unanimously? The next item is D, personnel actions. Ms. Thomas, would you read the motion, please?
I move to approve the personnel actions as contained in the attachments to this agenda. Second.
Thank you. Do we have comments or questions?
I had an earlier question that I brought through our HR department, that the two technology specialists, they're temporary positions. They're not, or they're teachers that are going to fill those roles, and if those positions end, they'll just roll back to teachers. So I thought we were generating a new department. So.
Oh, good. Good. Thank you for asking. Are there other comments or questions? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote, please, Ms. Rice, if you would.
Kathleen Mulholland,
Yes.
Andy Blau,
Yes.
Denise Brooks,
Yes.
Tom McKessie,
Yes.
Rick Tate,
Yes.
Wendy Thomas,
Yes.
Patrick Thorwald,
Yes.
Jerry Grubb,
With the exception of item 3, support staff, I will vote yes. For item 3, support staff, I have filed a notice of conflict of interest with an abstention with the solicitor. My wife is listed as a substitute support staff person for candidacy and is listed here, and so I'll abstain from Roman 3, the support staff portion. The rest of it I agree with and vote yes.
Terrific. Thank you. Dr. Fraser.
Thank you, Mr. Tate. One of the positions that was just approved is for our new community relations specialist, and the person hired is with us here this evening, Ms. Susan O'Grady. So congratulations, Ms. O'Grady. Ms. O'Grady comes to us from the school district of Cheltenham Township. She has been working in the area of school district communications for the past 8 years as a director of communications for Cheltenham, and even longer in that office. Did some grant writing work for Cheltenham before that, and even has a background as a high school English teacher in that school district as well as others. So a very rich and valuable background is being brought here to Council Rock by way of the school district of Cheltenham Township, and we're very excited and pleased to welcome you aboard.
Thank you. Even though communications is my specialty, I know school board meetings can run lengthy, so I'll keep this brief. I just want to sincerely say I'm very, very excited to join the Council Rock School District family. Your reputation precedes you, and it was doubled down on by all of the professionals that I met in what was a very comprehensive and impressive interview process. I'm positively thrilled to be joining Dr. Fraser's team, and more importantly, I just cannot wait to get here on September 18th to meet your staff, your students, and to start to get the good word out for you, and to be a real resource for every single person in this district to communicate effectively, efficiently, wisely, and to represent the board and everyone in the best possible light. So I'm sincerely grateful and very excited. So thank you so very much for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thanks, Susan. And also this evening, I am going to throw it over to our Assistant Superintendent for Teaching and Learning, Dr. Susan Elliott. We also this evening had a couple wonderful new positions approved this evening in the form of our Elementary Technology Integration Specialist. So Dr. Elliott, I'll let you talk a bit about those and introduce our new specialists.
Thank you, Dr. Fraser. First, I want to thank the board for your approval of this year's budget, because included in that budget was our 3-year technology plan, which is enabling us to increase access to technology for all of our students and really work to build opportunities for 21st century learning and develop of 21st century skills. As part of that 3-year technology plan, we've included technology integration specialists. And our goal with hiring those folks as our internal folks who are, know our teachers, know our districts. So we're bringing teachers out of the classroom to serve in this role, to work alongside with their colleagues to be able to support implementation of the technology, as well as our Council Rock educational technology standards, is a really great opportunity for us to support this continued plan in our work as a district. So Matt and I worked on this interview process and had a team representative of multiple schools and positions across the elementary schools in the district, so that we really were sure we were getting the right people for the position. And I'm thrilled to say that our two folks that are sitting here in front of you tonight that I'll introduce to you were unanimously approved by every member of the committee. They really felt that they were the two best candidates for the position. They are ready to hit the ground running. And since I talked to them to offer them this position, I know they've been already thinking and processing things. They both each have an entry plan that they've been working on, and now they'll have a chance to work together as a team. So First of our two folks is Hannah Pressman. And Hannah is started working here in Council Rock in 2009. And she started at Holland Elementary School. She's been at various elementary schools since then and has taught 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, and 6th grade. Most recently, she's been a 6th grade teacher at Richboro Elementary School. Additionally, Hannah recently earned her administrative certification from Holy Family University. So she has aspiring leadership skills as well that we're thrilled that she's bringing to this position. She also was a recent member of our Council Rock Leadership Academy that we run here for folks who are in administrative certification programs, and they work as a team and they learn some different things, and they do some projects and also get a sense of different roles of what it is to be an administrator. So we're thrilled that Hannah's bringing that experience as well as the experience at the upper level of elementary to this position. It's going to be very valuable when working with teachers. And second, we have Danielle Udis, and Danielle is a CR grad who also has been working here for 6 years, and she's taught in various elementary schools as well across the district, and she's taught grades 1, 3, 5, and 6. Most recently, she's been a 1st grade teacher at Wrightstown, and she has her Master's of Ed from Holy Family University with a reading specialist certification. So they both bring some varied experiences and varied grade levels to the position that I think is going to really serve our teachers and our students well as we move forward with our implementation of our technology plan with our year 1 plan at the elementary school. So I thank you very much, and to both of you, welcome, and we are very excited to get you started and working with teachers, as I know you are as well. So welcome and congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Elliott. We'll move ahead with the Solicitor's Report. Mr. Cox, if you would, please.
I'll announce the executive session before the meeting on a specific personnel item, and other than that, that's all I have to report.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. Moving on to old business. Does anyone have old business they wish to discuss? New business. Is there any new business? If not, we'll move ahead to committee reports, academic standards. Ms. McKessie, please.
Yes, academic standards has been on something of a hiatus this summer, and our first meeting for the 2017-2018 school year will be Thursday, September 14th. The agenda has been set and is posted on the website, the topics that we will be covering at each meetings, and you will notice that some are marked as to be determined to allow us room to move things in or out as needed as they arise throughout the year. The topics for the first meeting in September will be a links update, an update to our links program, as well as an update on our high school courses.
Thank you, Ms. McKessie. Facilities Committee, Dr. Thorworth.
We met on August 3rd. It was a fairly informative agenda, but light. I mean, we had an energy management update as usual. We talked about our facilities improvements, so anyone that was there got a good taste of where we stand with the 2 middle schools. And also our summer capital improvements projects. We got a flavor for where they are. I did ask Mr. Taylor, are we going to be ready over there at Holland Middle for day 1? And he assures me we will be they're working feverishly now, I know. So that was the crux of facilities for last meeting, and we meet on September the 7th at 7 o'clock, correct? 6:30.
Thank you, Dr. Thorworth. Finance Committee, Ms. Thomas, please.
Yes, I was not able to be there, so I'm going to pass it over to Mr.
We actually had a short meeting due to some of the absences and everything. We started out with the quarterly investment review by Kevin Carpuck from Cornerstone, going over how our investments are doing and how we are moving with that. Then we only went over 2 agenda items that were passed today. The first one was the school district depositories, and that's just an annual thing that we have to approve where we have our money. And the second one was the 2018 high school senior trips, which was also approved tonight in the consent agenda. We'll have a full meeting, a full agenda for the next meeting for sure.
Next meeting, September 7th, following facilities.
Immediately following, correct?
Excuse me?
Immediately
following,
yeah.
yes, immediately following.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. Thank you, Mr. Reinhardt. Policy Committee, Mr. Grubb, please.
We met on July 27th in the agenda. This evening, you saw 2 policies voted explicitly, and there were a number of policies that were also voted on in our consent agenda. I really do want to take a moment in this to thank Dr. Elliott, Dr. Lambert, Mr. Desko. You know, those meetings run a little different than some of our meetings. They are very collaborative. They run quickly and well because of the investment in time of those 3 individuals, assisted by Mr. Frederickson, who acts as the record keeper while we're having some rather intense discussions by multiple persons. I do want to advise, at our last meeting, I had attempted to defer 3 of our policies: academic integrity, assessment of student progress, and promotion and retention, I believe were the 3. I had attempted to defer those to academic standards. After discussion with the chair of the academic standards, we're going to bring back the policy. Just the way the policy committee runs in terms of collaboration and working together is a little different setup than the academic standards committee, which often has more presentations coming to it and discussions about specific tasks. So rather than muddy the waters, we're going to take those back. On August 24th, we'll be meeting. Dr. Elliott, I will defer to you to whether you want to bring those at that time, those 3 that we deferred, or catch them up later, because Mr. Desko is our host that night as we go through a series of policies, including admissions of beginners first grade, kindergarten admission, eligibility for non-resident students, foreign exchange, attendance, assignment within the district, withdrawal from school, supplemental discipline records, graduation requirements, student discipline, weapons, not student discipline, space, weapons, terroristic threats, acts, drugs and controlled substances, student expression, and dress and grooming. That will be August 24th. And in closing about that, I really do want to express my appreciation. We are really fortunate at our meetings to occasionally have the presence of students and recent graduates from our school district. As we sit and make policies, we are on the outside. Many of us are board members, are not in the schools. We have our administrators who are in the schools. But, and I think Dr. Frazier has said it at some point today, because he always talks about it's about the students. So it's about the students. And so having the student input has proven to be very useful. And I would like to, I have not brought it up before, I would actually like to have a bit of a reach out at some point when to our SEB or through our principals to see if they'll nominate someone from within their framework to actually come to help do that. I think that works as a good segue to allow those students to have some input to us. And they don't have to be the SEB officers. I think there's a lot of opportunity to go around, but I think it's something that those persons can go back to SEB and help to educate SEB on what's going on. I think, I'll put that forward. And now that Susan O'Grady is here, I'll look to see if she'll help me pick that up. But looking through your experience, I think that's something that falls within your framework of including the students. Terrific. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grubb. The Ad Hoc Master Capital Planning Committee, Mr. Block, please.
Thank you, Mr. Tate. I have nothing new to report from my last update. There is currently no meeting scheduled, as I alluded to at our last board meeting. I think it's important to understand what the redistricting schedule is going to look like and the activities around that for reconvening the Master Capital Planning Committee to discuss disposition for other facilities. I do believe that we need to talk about a date for the hearing of Rolling Hills closure, and we want to give the public plenty of time. At our last meeting, we did agree that that wouldn't be best done at this meeting during the summer. So Dr. Frazier, I believe that your plan for that would be to be at our September 19th meeting prior to the board meeting.
We've been talking about looking at September 14th.
Okay.
After the meeting of the Academic Standards Committee. So the look is to have academic standards from 6:30 to 7:30 and then have the public hearing beginning at 7:30 on Thursday, September 14th.
Okay, great.
Good
Make
deal.
sure we get that well out.
And I will, yes, I will have that out.
Something else, Ms. O'Grady.
Yeah.
Your dance card is filling up.
Yeah. Mr. Block, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Fraser. The Middle Bucks Institute of Technology representative, we have one currently. Mr. Bialik is away. We will have two very shortly because our newest board member, Kathleen Mulholland, has graciously agreed to serve as an MBIT representative. So thank you for that. Next committee report, Bucks County Intermediate Unit number 22. Ms. Brooks, please.
The IU does not meet in August, so I have nothing to report. Our next meeting, sadly, is September 19th on our board meeting night here, so we'll be missing that one.
Thank you very much. And finally, Council Rock Education Foundation. Our liaison is Mr. Bialik, and again, he is away. And we'll keep you informed of upcoming activities of the foundation. I think there's a dinner on October 11 you ought to put on your calendar, and you'll learn more about it as the time gets closer. We'll have a second session of public comment if anyone wishes to speak. Hello, tell us your name. We know you, Margaret. Please, for the benefit of everyone else, please give us your name and your residence.
Okay, my name is Margaret Jung, and I am from Newtown, and being a rising junior of Council Rock North. Okay. Now, after the 2016 election, acts of hate were committed in my school, Council Rock North. The bathroom vandalism is far less severe than the murderous violence of the recent protests in Charlottesville, Virginia. I nevertheless associate the incidents in my mind and heart. Charlottesville reminds us that our work in a nation to cultivate welcoming, positive, non-hateful communities is not yet completed. But as we learned from last year's crimes in school, neither is that of our schools. Last year, we high school students had opportunity to voice our opinions and feelings in forums established specifically in response to the hate vandalism. And several students offered ideas for how school climate could be improved. And many asked for more forums for the expression of students' voice. Having not been present at all of the forums, I cannot say how many student ideas were incorporated into action, though I suspect that few have been seriously considered afterwards. And certainly no second student forum has been held, at my school at least. We students are frustrated by this apparent inaction and irritated our perspectives, well, it has seemed ignored, although Mr. Grubb, of course, has extended to a couple of students, is going to. Well, that's the idea at least. Well, to our student voice. But, okay. And we students are thinkers and feelers, beings and growings, and we have the right to be active agents in our own learning and school experience. I speak not just of students like me who dare to enter the boardroom themselves, but of those who need to have other students as conversation partners feel comfortable expressing themselves, or even to write and send their opinions anonymously. I know the board and the administration welcome and appreciate students' involvement, and we just need to actively seek out student voice and agency and to cultivate school environments that more clearly encourage students to share their perspectives as essential partners in a Council Rock education. Guide us to explore the school system, engage even elementary school students in the decision-making of our schools. We wrote school laws in third grade humanities, and why can't all kids learn civics through active participation? All students deserve age-appropriate and regular forums and other venues for reflection and expression on school issues. Empower us to realize the school-improving ideas that emerge from these forums. At any time you receive student input, such as through a forum or maybe a student survey, please update us regularly on how you're using our first-hand experience to guide the activities of school leadership. You can start with the PLC student survey I conducted and submitted the results of last year. I know the findings have helped you in ways, but what concretely have you done in response? The students would benefit to know. Lastly, may I suggest that when you design a new PLC and Q school schedules, you put at least one time block a week for students and adults to discuss their school's experiences and share what each desires the others to do to make school a more educationally optimal place. Students should be treated as professionals in their job as learners, and thus they have a weighty place in the professional learning community as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret.
Betsy Worthen Holland. I had one more follow-up from last month's meeting. 3 minutes is so little time. So I wanted to discuss and respond to the frustrations that one board member expressed about the amount of time that was being spent talking about buildings because their purpose on the board is to address educating kids. And after months of listening to parents pleading for you to consider their children's education, I frankly just found that comment baffling. If the discussions about closing Rolling Hills weren't about education, then perhaps the parents who have spoken to you should have been listened to. I would imagine that for 440 some kids and parents who these past months have been talking about their education, this is about education. If the discussions about buildings isn't about education, maybe it will be clear when you have no money for technology in the future because it's all tied up in buildings and debt. Will you realize that the discussions about buildings have been about education when you have no money to fund the next teacher's contract? I hope we will find out if the discussions about buildings hasn't been about education when you have no money. I hope we won't find out that it hasn't been about education when you have no money for new textbooks or new curriculum because it's all tied up in debt and buildings. If you think that closing buildings isn't about education, then perhaps you should have been listening to the folks who pleaded with you to not send the district down a road of further debt and tax increases. When faced with that debt and the caps on tax increases, that is when we won't be discussing education because there will be no money to fund a quality program.
Nancy Carroll, Newtown Borough. My comments are not meant to rain on your parade. It's meant to say you're going in the right direction. I have been lobbying for integration specialists before these 2 young ladies were employed for the district. It is a long time coming. And it's a little bit, it's not enough. And our technology plan, compared to what the other school districts around us are doing, is infinitesimal. Not that you're not going in the right direction, you're going in the right direction. My daughter lives in Neshaminy. She got a letter, they're gonna be 1-to-1 in grades 2 through 4, 5, and 8 in the middle school. We'll get Chromebooks, and 6 and 7 will still have iPads, and there's going to be iPads in kindergarten and elementary school. That's just our schools next to us. We are so far behind in STEM, in technology, in learning management systems. And we're going to spend $11.6 million on classrooms we do not need. I just don't get it. I'd like to welcome our new Susan, who is our new communications director. She came from an office of communications. I don't know if there is an office for you, but you're the only person. I don't know if you'll even have a secretary, but it's a start. I mean it sincerely, it is a good start, but we need to be doing leaps, jumping downs, and going forward. Where's our STEM initiatives? Other school districts have multiple courses in STEM. Where are ours? We'll graduate 2 more classes up at the high school that will not have hardly any access to technology because it's a 3-year plan. You have to be aware of what context you are spending this money. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carroll.
And it is like rearranging the deck, the chairs on the Titanic. It really is, if you don't put money into education.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Mrs. Carroll. Anyone else? If not, we'll move on to board comment. Do we
I have a
have,
board comment.
please?
I would like to ask that we look for different dates for the Rolling Hills hearing. The night that you're proposing is the South Back to School night, and the night of our board meeting is the North Back to School night. So I don't think that hearing, certainly not with the South, well, actually either. I don't think that we should have those hearings competing with back to school nights if we can avoid it.
Thank you for that. Other board comment? Hearing none, do I have a motion to adjourn? Second. Thank you. Thank you all for coming. Good night.